Hola everyone, my title is Don Juan El Negro, and I am here to narrate you through this documentary on how I discovered my Shemite Assyrian roots and how I discovered my Kemetic Egyptian roots and how I discovered my Hebrew Negro roots. And hopefully you can use this as a tool to find your Hebrew roots too. You know, if you happen to be a Negro, it's not a very hard thing to do. So you don't have to be affiliated with any like religious group, you know. You don't have to be led by to finding out from a teacher or a preacher, you know, but you have to be on a journey to know who you are as a Negro. So Negro was a name for Jew in old motherland Spain. So just think of me as a Spanish Negro. So one day back in the day, I was, thumbing through real history worldwide on the internet, and I came across this picture of Asshar-Haddon, the king of Assyria. I'm looking at it like I'm like, wow, I can't believe that these Assyrians were Negroes. I'm like, whoa, nobody told me about this one, so the red flag went up. So I started to look at it deeper. So I began to realize that, whoa, these are the Asiatic Shemite brothers, the bearded Negro that I had read about, And so it's like looking in the mirror. So this was the origin of the bearded Negro. These ancient Assyrians from the land of Abraham. So this is what Abraham would look like, right? And this was proof positive that Negroes were Shemites. And his calling card is his beard, and his dreads and his hair, just like in the ancient times, That's why you see brothers getting into the beards, because Negroes grow beards. You got other Africans that can't grow beards, but it's a sign of the Negro. So when you see these ancient kings, and they got these full beards and stuff like this, it's from the Negro strain. Then I started to realize that these bearded Negro kings had left a footprint that would lead you, through Asia, through Egypt, through Western Africa, and through Europe, onto America, So I started to, studying, trying to find out the origin of these Assyrians. So I came across the Sumerian kings list, and found out Assyria was the oldest nation in the history of mankind. So let's take a look at this list and you'll see what I mean. The first king, the ruler's name is Alulim. His city is Eridu. His years of reign is 28,800 years he reigned. That's how long he lived. The second king, his city is Eridu also, and his name is Alagar. And his years of reign is 36,000 years. Okay. And then they even got Divine Demuzi. That's Tammuz. The Tammuz. And he's the fifth king on here, and he lived for 36,000 years. So I'm looking at all these long, lifespans and everything, and I'm realizing, like, whoa, this is way before Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve was only like 7,000 years ago. This is like 100,000 years, right? So I started to realize that the reason why they try to say this is fiction, because it doesn't fit into the Adam and Eve being the first humans on Earth narrative. So a light went in my mind, like when I was reading about the Garden of Eden, I seen the nation of Assyria in the Garden of Eden. So let's look at that. Chapter 2, verse 10, the Garden of Eden. And it reads, "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pizon. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Haliba, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is Bellium and the onyx stone. The name of the second river is Gihon, and the same is that which compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. So the nation of Ethiopia is in the Garden of Eden. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goes towards the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. So right there you can see Assyria in the Garden of Eden. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest eat freely. So he put Adam in the Garden of Eden and commanded him to be the commander of the garden. But there's nations already in the Garden of Eden that are older than Adam, and Assyria is one of those nations. So I didn't want to believe that the nation of Assyria was in the Garden of Eden until I came upon this verse. It's Ezekiel chapter 31. We're going to start at verse number 2. Son of man, speak unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, and to his multitude, whom art thou like in thy greatness? So he's speaking to the king of Egypt, and he's trying to compare someone who is great as the king of Egypt. So let's continue. Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon, with fair branches, and with a shadowy shroud, and of a high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. The waters made him great, the deep set him up on high, with her rivers running round about his plant, and sent out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field. Therefore his height was exalted above all the trees of the field, and his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of the multitude of waters, when he shot forth. All the fowls of heaven made their nests in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young, and under his shadow dwelt all great nations. So it's using the trees as a metaphor for nations, like family trees. Thus was he fair in his greatness, in the length of his branches, for his root was by great waters. The cedars in the garden of God could not hide him. The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches, nor any tree in the garden of God was like unto him in his beauty. I made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. So it was a slam dunk. The Assyrians were the greatest nation in the Garden of Eden. So you had Assyria that was before the flood of Noah. And then you had Assyrians that was after the flood of Noah. They were the descendants of Shem. But the ones that were before the flood, they were not descendants of Shem. They were not descendants of Adam. They were before Adam. Okay? And so they traced their heritage all the way back to the beginning of mankind. So let's read about that real quick. I traced these Assyrians back to the Garden of Eden, before the flood, So I wanted to find out their origin. So it was the day before the Sabbath, on the 6th day creation. So let's read. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him, male and female created he them. And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And Elohim said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So this was before the Garden of Eden, because he rested on the seventh day. He was finished creating, and then after the seventh day, Yahweh Elohim. See, this doesn't say Yahweh Elohim. It just says Elohim. Just says God. It doesn't say the Lord God. He formed Adam and put him in the garden. It doesn't say he created Adam. Okay. So this was the creation. Oh, and at this time, all the humans were the kings of the whole earth, and they were all vegetarians, and all of the animals were vegetarians also. So this would explain why on the Sumerian's king list they lived such long lives. So that was very, very interesting when I discovered that. So my motto was, just dig as deep as you can, till you find the origin. So on further investigation of this stone monument relief to Esarhaddon, I noticed whoa, they got him portrayed as a giant. Look at how tall he is, and look at the little subject, his little people. This is a biblical king here, right? And so I started noticing, that in a lot of the Assyrian stone reliefs, they was portraying the kings as giants, but the subjects were regular sized people, So start to wonder about it. For example, here go Tammuz, Tammuz, he's on that Assyrian king list, lived like hundreds of thousands of years before Adam. But look how tall he is. He's a giant, right? And then he got little people too, And they had two Tammuzes. They had one that was way back hundreds of thousands of years ago, and then they had one that was the descendant of Noah's people, after the flood too, So I'm thinking, are these giants from before the flood? Before, Noah and the subjects are the people that's after the flood? So then that prompted me to read this about the giants in the Bible. So let's do that. The days of Noah, right? So this is Genesis chapter 6, and it reads as such. And it came to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all they chose. And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So here it's talking about the giants, and so it said it was giants in the days of Noah, and it was giants after the days of Noah. Okay, so I'm thinking, are these giants that you see walking around, with these people on these reliefs after the days of Noah, were they a dying race, and they would make them kings because the giants lived longer. They were from a more ancient people because after Noah, he cut their years down to 120 years. The giants, they lived longer. They were a dying race. So the flood was sent to destroy evil giants, but some of them survived like Goliath. And people would revere those giants as gods and kings. So these ancient Assyrians were the original people of the eagle. Then they passed the eagle down to their relatives, the Babylonians. So they were the second eagle. And then the Romans were the eagle. And then the Americans are the eagle. Okay, so what it is, the eagle was Yahweh's police. So every time that the Israelites would get out of hand, Yahweh would send the Assyrians or the Babylonians, the eagle people, to go over there and whoop on them, chastise them, And so that eagle is a symbol of Babylon captivity and Assyrian captivity. So when you see the eagle on a dollar bill, it's the same thing. It's a biblical hieroglyph telling the world that they are the Babylon captivity of the Israelites. So let's look into that eagle. So here we see the mighty eagle, in mid-flight. So in his right hand, he's got his weapons. He's got the arrows, okay, in his right claw, okay, that he's used against the Hebrew tribe to subdue them, to siege them, and to control them, to come against them. And then in his left hand, he's got the broken branch. This is the broken cedar branch, right? So he's got control of these tribes, And then he's got the little buds on the tree, on the little branch, showing that he's got total control over these tribes. So what that eagle is doing is portraying this same scene that we see on this Assyrian relief. This the eagle man, the big bulky Assyrian, he's got his weapon in his hand that he's using against the Hebrew tribes. And then this other hand, he's controlling the Hebrew tribe. So what it is that relief is the same thing that's on the dollar bill. So we can read about that in the Bible, because that eagle is a biblical hieroglyph to tell the people who observe that this eagle represents Babylon captivity to the Hebrew tribes in America. America is the Babylon the Great, mother of the harlot. So let's read a riddle about the eagle. Okay, so this is Ezekiel chapter 17. So we're going to read a part of the riddle. Okay, because you have to understand riddles and parables, and that in order to understand what these hieroglyphs are saying, because some people don't want America to be Babylon. And that could be your local preacher, teacher, or politician. If the shoe fits, you gotta wear it, So let's read this. It says, "And the word of Yahweh came into me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle, and speak a parable unto the house of Israel, and say, Thus saith Yahweh Elohim, a great eagle with great wings, long-winged, full of feathers, which had divers colors, came into Lebanon, and took the highest branch of the cedar." So that's what you see on that dollar bill. You see that eagle in full flight, just going down and yanking the branch off the tree. Okay, he cropped off the top of the young twigs, so he got the twigs in his hand. You see the eagle yourself in full flight, and carried it into the line of traffic. So it's a lot of traffic in the land where they carried this eagle off to America. He set it in the city of merchants, yeah, like New York and all these big places, right? So let's continue. He took also of the seed of the land. So when you look at that bud or that branch on the eagle, he's gonna have like little buds on the branch, right? That's what this is talking about. And planted it in a fruitful field. He placed it by great waters. So these tribes are by great waters. You got the Mississippi, you got the Atlantic Ocean, you got Florida, because this is what the tribes primarily were, up and down the East Coast, where all these Negro natives were and Negroes. And it grew and became a spreading vine of low stature. So this nation in the claws of this eagle is just a vine of low stature now, whose branches turn towards him. So their branches turn towards their oppressor, and the roots thereof are under him. So he's concealing the roots of this tree. So it became a vine and brought forth branches and shot forth sprigs. So it can't fully develop. So this is a part of a riddle about the Babylon captivity, and you see the eagle in full flight right on the Great Seal of the United States of America. So what it is this. On the back of the dollar bill you have the Great Seal of the United States. And they are biblical hieroglyphs. They're telling you who they are in the Bible. So on the right side you have the eagle. That's the Assyrian Babylon eagle, which represents the captivity of the Hebrew tribes in America. And then on the left you have a mysterious pyramid with an eyeball, on top, like peeking out, like winking at you, like wink wink. So what that is, that represents the slavery in America, the Egyptian bondage, okay, to a new Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. Because a lot of people think that the Egyptians put the Hebrews in captivity when they went down to Egypt. No, when they went there, they was being fruitful and multiplied because Joseph was in Egypt already, and he was a prince. And he had even had two kids, Manasseh and Ephraim, from the princesses of Egypt. Okay, and when they reached Egypt, they was living large. Okay, until a new Pharaoh arose who knew not Joseph, who put them in serious bondage. Okay, and tried to control their population and tried to stop the rising of a Messiah to be born, Moses. So, who are the people who are under the grips of this eagle in America? So, it says here, the Great Seal of America reveals the hidden biblical identity of the Negroes and Negretas. The Negretas are the Negro natives of America. The Negroes are from Negro land in the west coast of Africa, and the Negro Jews and Muslims expelled from Spain and all of Europe. So let's read about the treacherous eagle from Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48 and 49. It's gonna just slam dunk show the light on who this eagle is and who the people who the eagle has in its grips. So here we go. Therefore shall thou serve thy enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of the old, nor show favor to the young. So right here is talking about the American experience of the American Negroes and Negrettas, you know, how they put chains upon their neck, you know, and by the time the chains came off, they didn't know who they were. You know, they erased their whole memory of who they were and everything. And that nation didn't show regard for the younger or old. They were fierce on their punishment, you know, of these tribes in America. When Israel was in Egypt's land, that my people go, oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. For Moses told to Pharaoh said, let my people go. If not, I'll kill your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Sorry about that. I was having a Hebrew flashback. So as you could tell by the lyrics to that song, we knew that we were in Egyptian bondage, you know, so we used to sing about it, you know what I mean? But a lot of people think that the Pharaoh that put us in captivity was the Egyptians, the native Egyptians, you know, that looked just like us and everything, you know, our brethren. But in fact, it was a different situation. So let's look at that situation. So let's identify who that little winking eyeball is on the dollar. So it says, this is Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, because Joseph was in Egypt already. Then Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them. They multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also into our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So the Israelites were living in paradise in Egypt, you know, with their brethren, until a new wicked king arose over Egypt, who was a different people, okay? And then he put them in bondage, and he opposed God and wouldn't let the people go, and you know, wanted to do the population control, started to kill the kids. So that is a reflection on what happened in America. You know, in the beginning of America, they set out to control the population because they was outnumbered, you know, by the natives and the Negroes who were already over here, and the ones they were shipping from Europe too. So let's look at another verse about the Egyptian bondage in America. It's Deuteronomy 28:68. And it reads as thus: And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold into your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So when it says that no man shall buy you, it's no one can redeem us. We never got redeemed for the slavery in America, and never got paid for it. Lost our land. No man has got us out of that misery. And when it's talking about the ships, you automatically think, oh, the slave ships from Africa. No, that's a part of it. That's the minimal part. There's more slave ships came from Europe. They emptied all of Europe out of the European kings who had just recently lost their kingdom. Okay? And all the natives, the ancient mound builders, the lost tribes of Israel, they all came over here on ships on their own thousands of years ago. Okay? So Moses is speaking to them saying on that side of that hemisphere in the east, they won't see it no more again. They'll be coming on ships to this western hemisphere where they will experience Egyptian bondage. So let's do one more verse, showing the identity of these Negroes in America and their experience in America. Okay? So it's the book of Genesis, chapter 15, and verse number 13. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve I will judge, and afterwards they shall come out with great substance. So this verse right here is talking about the 400 years, the famous 400 years of slavery in America, So if you look it up, it's going to say that the slaves came over around 1619, around that time. So the 400 years is over. So now it's time for the nation to get judged and for the people to finally get what's been coming to them for their bondage. When it said no man shall redeem, no man shall buy, it's time for everything to get divvied up. The judgment and everything will come to America according to this word. And so on that note, I want to say peace and shalom. And I want to say adios, my Negroes. And I want to say this also. Be sure to like and be sure to subscribe and be sure to look out for part 2 because we're going to continue the journey. Okay? So peace and adios, my Negroes.